Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. Boris Johnson and Joe Biden are taking very different approaches shilling for Big Pharma at Christmas.
Getting jabbed, not just for themselves, for ourselves, but for friends and family and everyone we meet. And that, after all, is the teaching of Jesus Christ, whose birth is at the heart of this enormous festival.
For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated. For themselves, their families, and the hospitals they'll soon overwhelm.
And Joe Biden is not only an expert about viruses, but he's also an expert about climate.
We all know everything is more intense when the climate is warming. Everything.
Joe Biden is not only an expert on climate, but he's also a mind reader. He knows what everybody else thinks. If the weather gets more extreme when it's warmer, then that implies that it's less extreme when it's cooler. Let's take a look at Joe Biden's theory and go back to the global cooling Christmas of 1974. On Christmas Day 1974, Cyclone Tracy destroyed Darwin, Australia. The city had to be abandoned for a year while it was being rebuilt. Also in 1974, Australia had their largest bushfires. About 15% of Australia's physical landmass sustained extensive fire damage. In 1974 started out with some of Australia's worst flooding, 32 inches of rain in Brisbane during January. That same year, on April 3rd and 4th, the United States had our worst tornado outbreak on record. 148 tornadoes in 24 hours. The fourth deadliest Atlantic hurricane on record occurred during September of 1974. Hurricane Fifi caused more than 8,000 fatalities in the Caribbean and Central America. At the same time, there was a devastating drought and famine in Bangladesh. As many as 1.5 million people died of starvation. During the summer of 1974, Phoenix had their worst heat wave on record, 18 consecutive days over 110 degrees. I was playing on the Arizona State University soccer team that year, and we went outside and practiced every afternoon at 3 o'clock. In 1974, the press was reporting the devastating food shortage that has millions of the world's poor people in its grip is directly related to what climatologists increasingly suspect is a gradual global cooling. Time magazine said we were headed into another ice age, and telltale signs were everywhere. The Guardian said, space satellites show new ice age coming fast. The director of the National Center for Atmospheric Research and their lead scientist said that global cooling was occurring, sea ice was expanding, and was threatening the world's food supply. This graph from the National Center for Atmospheric Research showed that temperatures were plummeting. The world was getting cooler and was causing droughts, floods, blizzards, tornadoes, typhoons, and hurricanes. The New York Times reported a unanimous consensus of climate experts. The change in global weather patterns posed a severe threat to agriculture that could lead to major crop failures and mass starvation. Joe Biden was in the U.S. Senate in 1974, and I wonder why he doesn't remember any of this. In 1972, 42 top American and European investigators met at Brown University. And then they sent a letter to President Nixon warning of a new ice age in about a century. Now let's go back to 1970. New York Times, July 18, 1970. U.S. and Soviet press studies of a colder Arctic. The United States and the Soviet Union are mounting large-scale investigations to determine why the Arctic climate is becoming more frigid, why parts of the Arctic sea ice have recently become ominously thicker, and whether the extent of that ice cover contributes to the onset of ice ages. The scientists wanted to sprinkle coal dust on the Arctic ice pack in order to melt it and save the world from global cooling. The Ice Age cometh became a common headline, including the cover of Science News. Sadly, their forecasts of Manhattan being overcome by glaciers didn't actually come true. The global cooling climate of 1970 led to the deadliest cyclone in world history. The November 1970 cyclone hit East Pakistan, which is now called Bangladesh. 150-mile-per-hour winds combined with a 20-foot storm surge probably killed around 500,000 people. Also in 1970, the Philippines was hit by two devastating typhoons. This typhoon graph was made by my beautiful wife Kyrie from Japan Meteorological Agency data. Pacific typhoons peaked right around the year 1970 and have been declining ever since. And the Australian Bureau of Meteorology reports the same thing. The number of both non-severe and severe cyclones around Australia has been declining over the past 50 years. As is normally the case, Joe Biden has absolutely no clue what he's talking about.
We all know everything is more intense when the climate is warming. Everything.
Let's take a look at how Scientific American explained the global cooling crisis of the 1970s. They say that it never happened and it consisted of a single article in Newsweek in 1975. And NASA did the same thing. In 1974, the National Center for Atmospheric Research showed that temperatures in 1970 were no warmer than they were in 1870. Temperatures plummeted after the peak in the early 1940s. But NASA did what they always do, and they simply made the cooling from the 1940s to the 1970s disappear. The Ministry of Truth simply erases inconvenient data. Joe Biden keeps saying that he listens to the scientists, but he probably doesn't even know who the actual scientists are. We no longer need Monty Python and the Holy Grail because our actual leaders are far too ridiculous even for a skit. Toto thanks Joe and Boris for the Christmas comedy. And Merry Christmas from Kyrie Toto, Kyrie Caesar and Tony.